Hello, Mark. Thank you for having this interview with us. I will start with a basic question, which is just a little introduction about you, your company profile, and perhaps whatever Michigan Labs is at the moment.
Yeah, no, happy to. Thanks so much for this interview. I'm Mark Johnson with Michigan Software Labs. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners here, and we are a software consultancy based in Michigan and serving many of the Fortune 1000 with custom software development.
Could you tell me a little bit about the kind of projects that you're involved in?
Yeah, so our projects range, from serving with the Fortune 1000 different industries, whether it's healthcare or logistics or fintech. We really do some automotive as well. Really depends on, what industry that we're serving. But developing custom mobile apps. A lot of these large companies have a lot of integrations that need to happen. And so we can write the front end of the app or the web app and really create an integrated experience.
So according to you, what is that one particular industry that's like really booming right now in terms of mobile applications?
Those industries that we're serving, pretty across the board. And so we're seeing a lot of demand for our team. I think with the pandemic, a lot of companies were maybe caught off guard. They still had Excel spreadsheets thrown around or paper. And so they really got woken up to this digital revolution that's happening.
Could you tell me a little bit about how exactly has these years have been?
Yeah, no. So we certainly, have a great team that we rely on. And, there's been a really, like I said, quite a bit of demand to hire our team. I think people just want to work with, people who are humble, who are easy to work with, who are, technical experts in their field. And so we've been able to do that for some really large, notable companies. And it's really exciting, to win all these awards and all that stuff. We kind of look at it and kind of put that on the back burner, but really try and focus on, all right, what is our client's next challenge? How can we help them solve that? Because really, if we, want to continue to grow and stay a healthy business, we have to continue to solve problems. And so that's what gets us really excited.
As you mentioned, you've had nominations not just for being one of the most budding, IT companies, but also for a very innovative and carefree workspace. So what exactly, when we say innovative HR practices, what are some of the out of the box or let's say lesser known HR practices that you practice?
Yeah, I think with with any team that you're building, it really comes down to that hiring process. So you're hiring people who are hungry, humble, and smart. That's based on Patrick Lencioni's book, The Ideal Team Player. And so there's no big egos on the team, and people just sincerely want to help each other. And when you get a team like that, they're going to be high performers, and they're going to be winning awards like Inc. Best Workplaces and Best and Brightest Places to Work. And Forbes Best Places to Work. So it's exciting to, kind of see that team come together. But really, when you're hiring, great people, they're going to be, easy to work with and really make all that difference. So we have done some interesting things with the pandemic. We offered, $1,000 work from home, stipend so people could get, a nice desk or a nice chair. We've continued to, grow in terms of our salaries and our benefits that we offer. We offer, things as far as, pet insurance, pay for their pets. We offer, the full health and dental that the company pays 100% of the premiums for. So we're going to continue to try and just, offer really, great things and then hire great people. And, it seems like great results will follow.
So could you walk me a little through these through the process of where exactly does it start, or how do you prepare the future generation for this mentorship?
So we've been partnering with local schools, and so think like elementary and middle schools and high schools to try and really create that acceptance of technology, and especially as it comes to software development for young girls. And so we've been involved in sponsoring BitCamp and BitCamp. Something that we did last year where we had middle school girls come in, actually came into the office. This was pre-pandemic. We were able to work with them and teach them, how to write a simple web application that, then they could, take those skills and really just get an interest in, interacting with others. And so it was really cool to see the excitement on the girls' faces as they realized, that they could really do it. They could program and design a website. And we're hoping that will continue to pay dividends as, the future class grows up.
right now in at the, let's say, the highest pedestal that is there for advancements in geofencing, what are we looking at? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, as the technology continues to improve, and as 5G becomes available, and all these different technologies that are coming out will really enable that. But I would say geofencing takes part maybe 50% of our apps, maybe where at least it's considered as part of the application. And it's a really powerful way to assess and send out notifications and really drive the user path forward. So we're seeing a lot of advancement in that, it's exciting to see.
So maybe with an example or something more concrete where we can understand how much, for anyone looking to invest in geofencing or trying to integrate it, how much is it like it contributes to the a product's growth?
Yeah, I'll just take an example from a user experience of thinking about how you could enable someone who is making deliveries to have a geofence set up that would enable them not to use their phone while they're driving. So think about making it a safe way to know when someone's out of the area of the warehouse and they're on to their next pickup. And it's a really great way to use data and use geofencing to enable safety as well in the application. And so that's something that we're excited about being a part of, and reduce texting and driving and allow people to continue to stay safe. But also it's a powerful business application, because if you can know where those users are and be able to make sure that they're getting to the place that they need to go safely, you can continue to enable those insights. And so it's cool to see the data come out of that too.
We spoke about powerful applications. So similarly, like geofencing, for instance, what would be 5 applications or like 5 categories that you're currently project categories that you're involved in and that you think are, not a bigger priority, obviously, but kind of the hottest industry for app, aspiring app owners or aspiring app developers to kind of focus on in the coming year?
I think continuing to look at, they're all the same buzzwords that everyone's already heard already, but, continuing to look at IoT, and enabling devices to be connected to the internet. So I like to use the story about smart factories and thinking about, kind of how a factory could be stopped, even 20 years ago by, a 1-cent screw. And, imagine if you were able to, 3D print that 1-cent screw, or there was a supply chain that could be enabled, to get that screw, to the right place faster. And so, we're continuing to see advances in that, but really it's going to all come from connected devices. And so if you think about, everything, whether it's a factory, it's a hospital, it's a school, everything's going to continue to be more and more connected. And that'll enable us to make better decisions for those environments. And so that's really what we're excited about, and what we're getting involved in more and more is really connecting more devices and sensors to the internet.
If you've already worked with some, you'd be able to maybe assess how much, because you can quote, right? Like that before the smart factory, let's say their growth rate was something, and then after the smart factory, it was installed, then the growth rate increases or something of that sort, or how much effect it has on the workforce. So just on those pointers, if I could know a little bit more about this.
Yeah. There's large investments happening by large companies that are trying to enable smart factories. And so I think, I read a stat the other day from McKinsey that, we're only 10% of the way there in terms of the innovation that's already happened around smart factories. And so it really is about, more, sensors and then capturing that data and using it to make real-time insights and decisions. And so I like to think about, all right, if we're only 10% of there and, it is, connected and becoming more and more connected, it's not just about the factory floor. It's also about, the supply chain that's feeding that and, allowing it to be smarter as it goes through the process. It's also about training, thinking about large, factories with thousands of people, how are you going to enable, training those individuals? And so, think about, maybe putting on a VR headset and being able to see, all right, this part goes here, this part goes there, be able to understand how you can be trained faster. and reduce that training time from, let's say, 6 weeks to 4 weeks and then down to 2 weeks. I mean, that's real innovation that's happening. And it's exciting to kind of see and be a part of that.
In fact, from factories, because what we were talking about was the data and how, it'll be interesting to measure all that data. So, from that, I would like to jump the conversation to synthetic data.
So we're part of the Forbes Technology Council, and as part of that, we get to write articles for Forbes. And so one of my articles I think you're referencing was on synthetic data in healthcare. And really, it's a way to, build a data set that will allow, continued innovation to happen without, waiting for maybe, more human-like data sets. So think of just creating a better sample. And what that allows you to do is, test, different hypotheses as you're going through the process of using that data. And so we're seeing, a lot of innovation happening around synthetic data, especially in the healthcare industry. And so being able to create that, it's really just a smarter data set that you can feed the models with. And by doing that, you're really, allowing yourself to, kind of see beyond the corner a little bit in terms of how that data can be used. And so, we're really excited about, what could be the possibilities of that. And then just allowing, it to be, created and used to create a safer world. And so especially, thinking right now with the pandemic and just all the different iterations that had to happen with all the vaccines, and, synthetic data was really useful for those companies that were developing that. And so it's just another tool in the tool belt really that they can use to continue to innovate and drive things forward.
What exactly are we talking about when we say synthetic data in healthcare?
Yeah, I was just pulling up the example that I shared in that Forbes article, which I think is a really good one, just to kind of think about how this all scales. And I think the example that I used was, from the insurance industry. And so, creating those, synthetic data sets in order to know really what was going to happen, for policy claims. And that's a boring example, but, it is something that I think is important to, outline. And so the other one that I think is relevant is just as you're thinking about, it's de-identified data. And so a lot of people think, well, it's just a fake data set. Like what's that great? But, what's happening on with that? But as you can imagine, the big issue is being anonymous with the data. And so especially as HIPAA concerns, being extremely sensitive to that. And so also financial health, data is, continuing to come out. And so, think about, a bank using that de-identified data and in order to create innovations. And so, it's not based on actual patient records or actual bank records. It can never be synced back to an individual or, a specific individual, if you think about that. So, instead it's just based on, an example in the real world. So one example that I used was from Cynthia, and that was really an open source, fully synthetic data set of EHR data. And it was used really to combine data of states and cities all together. And it was used to improve the academic research that was being created and new treatment models and clinical decision support. So it was really exciting to see that come out.
Now, the thing is, if it's data that doesn't actually belong to anybody or isn't created from anywhere, so how does the IP laws work on that data then?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the project or depends on, kind of the variables that you're creating. A lot of those that are doing this are doing it in an open source way. And so like the example that I used of Cynthia, they're completely open source. They aren't owning it. The intellectual property is, available to anyone that wants to apply the technology. And I think that's really the best way to do it, is to, consider using an open source source at this point.
So, please tell me a little bit about the medicine discovery, AI and drug discovery.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, some of this is getting a little out of the range of the league here, but I think probably the article that you're referencing was that one that I wrote for Forbes, maybe just about digital transformation in unlikely places, and just all of these ways that transformation is happening. And so I think looking at and thinking back on those examples, I think is really important. because it is happening. It's happening in government, it's happening in healthcare, it's happening in really, unlikely places that you wouldn't assume digital transformation to happen. And so I think of, if someone right now is watching this or listening and they're in an outdated industry, and I think, innovation could never happen in our industry because it's so boring here, but it will happen. And, continuing to drive that progress forward. I think, that's part of what I try and, encourage people to do is start really small, start with something that's really basic project that you can get your hands around, you can get some excitement around, and really start to build some traction around innovation. And I think when you do that, that allows you to get more and more traction, and then continue to innovate throughout your organization. So it doesn't need to be boiling the ocean, as we say. It doesn't need to be that big. It can be really small, and that can really create lasting impact.
So if you were to build a product's MVP, like right now, or at this moment in healthcare sector that integrated AI or data, what would you make?
Oh, yeah. So the process, I can tell you about the process that we would use. And we would start really with a small sprint of, understanding, the user journeys and understanding, how people are using this inside a hospital or inside an application that they're already using. Where are those pain points? Really where you're finding pain is where you're finding a project. And so if there is, something that they're getting stuck on or something that doesn't make sense, it needs to be redone. It needs to be, improved in order to make the user's life better. So I think, it's really not hard to find, something, especially in, healthcare or in hospitals. And that's not a dig against them. It's just there's so much complexity, I think, with those problems inside those systems. So I would probably, just start with a really simple user journey. Even looking at login, how is that process? Is it biometric, or is it, you've got to type something on a keyboard and take off your gloves and, do something like that. Even if it's not a very complex innovation, I still think it can really add value.
Yeah, makes sense. But that is the user journey. What next? Because for an MVP.
Yeah. So really what you do within that first phase of the MVP is you write what's called user stories. And so within those user stories, you're really just thinking about, all right, what features are the highest priority to start with? And then let's say you're putting that into a web application. And so then, taking that next few sprints and really, outlining what do we need to get done in order to add value? Like if this thing is, complete and done, it's not all these features that are years down the road. It's really just those simple features right now that are going to add value to users' lives. And so thinking about it that way is really important.
What are some of the company workflow technologies that not a lot of people would know about?
Yeah, so I think if you're thinking about, starting a software company, and looking at, prioritizing the pain, where is that, greatest pain happening, for a user, focusing on that. I would say, the other part that is happening, is really, it matters what team you build. And so, getting better at, continuing to build a team and give them, that team feedback and have that team give you feedback in order to grow. That's really going to be, the most important thing is the team that you're building. And then, I think it was coined to Henry Ford, but, nothing happens until a sale is made. And so it's really important that you think about that as you're building your company. Because if you're not, serving people and helping people, whether you're building products or you're building, it's a services-based company, it's so important to kind of get that user experience right and that buyer's journey right. And so, I would say spending time focusing on that, making sure it's really world-class and that people feel appreciated and valued and, you're continuing to move things forward.
If there was one takeaway, like one thing that you feel that every marketer or, an IT professional or basically people in the ecosystem right now, if there was something that they should not miss out on in 2021, it could be any technology, even a developer language. I mean, it's your call. But what would be that one thing that people shouldn't that should really invest heavily in?
If it's not a technology, I would say it's really talking to users is probably going to be what it comes down to. And I know that is really, pretty outdated, advice, but it's so important. And a lot of times in the technology realm, it gets forgotten. And, you build things in this silo that, really never get seen or tested. And so I would say, talking to those users, really understanding what it is that's important to them. And so listening, I think, is just a really good fundamental to apply in 2021. There's so much noise around us, and the more and more that you can apply it, the better off your organization will be for the long term.
What do you need out of a tech media house at the moment to inform and to educate, or to even support budding businesses like yours? I mean, not budding, but it's already booming. But
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're doing is great, and getting the stories out there and trying to really spread the word. I think continuing to bring up the quality around the content is is always where attracts the people. And so the more that you can get thought leaders to write on your behalf, or the more that you can be doing different interviews that are really impactful for people, I think that's, you're focusing on the right things. And so that's really going to be where I see a lot of that happening. I think these index sites, like you think of Clutch, or MobileAppDaily, and just the way that they're reaching out and really trying to create that value. I think that will continue to embed them for the long term. I can say from a SEO perspective, there's certainly no way to get any higher than using those sites, rather than trying to do something organically. It's just the first page is going to be all of these index sites that list multiple development teams, and so that's exciting to kind of watch that trend.
Personally, do you think that I missed out on any, discussion that we should have, that would have added value to this conversation?
Or no, I think it was really well. So,
sorry?
Yeah, I appreciate you being available, and thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.